if you were to crack open a jagged, freezing gray boulder at the literal roof of the world, the last thing you would expect to find hidden inside is, like, a flawless drop of fossilized sunshine.
Right, you'd expect granite.
Yeah, exactly. You expect cold, dead, subterranean gray. But then, completely defying this punishing environment, you uncover something luminous.
It's quite the contrast.
It really is. A stone so perfectly honey yellow, so warm, it practically hums, and suddenly that whole scientific, cold, inanimate object idea just shatters.
Oh, entirely.
You aren't just looking at a geological specimen anymore. You're looking at an anomaly that literally forces people to invent entirely new myths just to explain its existence.
Because it forces a collision between hard mineralogy and deep human sentiment.
Right.
I mean, when a landscape is actively trying to freeze you out
Yeah.
and it suddenly produces a stone that looks like a trapped spark of light, well, geology instantly becomes poetry.
Man, that's a great way to put it.
We see how inextricably tied our human survival instincts are to the physical objects we, pull out of the earth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the journey of this particular stone is wild. Welcome to today's deep dive, by the way. We are diving into a text today called Clinohumite, Radiant Fragments of the Fire Mountain.
It's a fascinating source.
It really is. So for you listening, Clinohumite is this incredibly rare crystal, famous for these brilliant, warm, golden, yellow, and amber tones. And our mission today is to trace its path.
From the ground up, basically.
Exactly. We are looking at how a cataclysmic geological event creates a statistical anomaly, how that anomaly births a gorgeous survival myth, and how even today people use that same stone to shift their own emotional energy.
Because you truly cannot separate the emotional application of the stone from the violence of its creation.
Right, they're linked.
Deeply linked.
Yeah.
The physical reality of where this crystal is born dictates literally every legend told about it and every psychological benefit attributed to it.
So let's start with that physical reality, because before we get into the emotional stuff, we have to talk about the dirt. Or, well, the rocks.
The extreme environment, yes.
Geologically, clinohumite is a magnesium silicate mineral. It's part of the humite group.
Correct.
And it is forged under incredibly high temperature conditions in metamorphic environments. But wait, if we break that down, magnesium is everywhere.
It is.
I mean, it's in our daily supplements. It's what makes fireworks burn bright. And silicate is essentially sand, right? It's the basis of quartz.
Basically, yes. Very common ingredients.
So if the ingredients are that common, why isn't this crystal found everywhere? Why is finding a gem quality piece basically a geological lottery?
Well, what's fascinating here is that having flour, sugar, and eggs doesn't bake a cake if you don't have an oven.
Ah, okay.
And in this case, the oven is an absolute cataclysm. A metamorphic environment means the rocks are literally changing form.
They aren't just like sitting there.
No, not at all. They are being crushed, cooked, and fundamentally reorganized by the earth.
Wow.
So to get clinohumite, you need magnesium and silica, yes. But you also need fluorine and hydroxyl.
Getting a bit more specific.
Right. And then, to get that signature golden color, you need trace impurities of titanium or manganese to get trapped inside at exactly the right moment.
That sounds complicated.
It is. But the real kicker is the pressure.
The pressure.
The Earth has to squeeze these elements with such unfathomable force that their very atomic lattice is reorganized.
Just totally squished into a new shape.
Exactly. Reorganized into a structure that perfectly absorbs certain spectrums of light and reflects back pure honey yellow.
And to find that specific pressure cooker, you have to go to one of the most hostile places on the planet.
The Pamir Mountains.
Right, in Central Asia.
Yeah.
A region literally known as the roof of the world.
Think about what is happening beneath those mountains, though. You have the Indian tectonic plate violently colliding with the Eurasian plate.
Just whole continents smashing into each other.
Exactly. Carrying unimaginable mass, crumpling the Earth's crust upward to create some of the highest peaks on the globe.
I can't even picture that level of force.
It is staggering. The subterranean friction generated by that collision creates heat and pressure that is almost impossible to comprehend.
And that's our oven.
That is the violent, chaotic forge required to squeeze trace titanium into a magnesium silicate lattice, perfectly enough to create a gem-quality clinohumite crystal.
So millions of variables have to align perfectly over, millennia.
Precisely.
Which explains why extracting a clear gem-quality piece from those jagged peaks feels less like mining and more like uncovering a miracle.
It really is a statistical anomaly.
Right, because when an ancient culture living in freezing darkness stumbles upon a perfect yellow anomaly, they don't see tectonic pressure and titanium impurities.
No, of course not. They see magic.
They see a miracle, which is exactly how the Fire Mountain legend was born. And we have to talk about this legend because the environment up there it's punishing.
The altitude brings crushing cold gray skies and a landscape that feels, frankly, entirely devoid of warmth.
Yeah, so to survive at the roof of the world, the sun isn't just a celestial body.
It is the ultimate guardian.
Literally the difference between life and death. It dictates your warmth, your agriculture, your ability to even navigate the terrain.
And the folklore beautifully reflects that dependency.
It does. Ancient legend says the inhabitants of the Pamir Mountains lived under the direct protection of the sun.
But these people were frequently threatened by nomadic invaders.
Right, so the mountains offered a physical refuge. But one evening, an attack came just as darkness fell.
The worst possible timing.
Exactly. The jagged peaks of the mountains blocked the sun's fading light, plunging the valleys into shadow and leaving the inhabitants completely vulnerable to the invaders.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario for them. The very geography that usually protects them is now working against them.
Cutting them off from their guardian. But the legend says the sun refused to abandon them.
It physically fought to move the mountains.
Which is such an incredible image. It tried to force its light into the deep valleys so the people could see to escape.
The source describes it as a relentless, devastating battle of light against stone.
Light against stone. And while the people survived and escaped, the sun was wounded.
Yes.
Its light was physically fractured against those jagged mountain peaks. Afterward, when the people found these radiant golden crystals buried in the rock, they named them the Fire Mountain.
They genuinely believed these were the shattered physical fragments of the sun.
Left behind from that battle. Here's where it gets really interesting because, the imagery is spectacular.
It is. And light against stone perfectly mirrors the geological reality of the region we just talked about.
Oh, you mean the tectonic stuff?
Right. The intense pressure, the tectonic friction, the clashing of elements. The myth is literally reflecting the chaotic geology. It's just wrapped in a narrative of sacrifice.
It totally reads like a superhero's origin story. A celestial guardian takes a physical blow for its people, leaving behind shattered pieces of its own armor.
That's a great analogy.
But let me challenge that a bit, actually. Isn't this just, classic confirmation bias?
How do you mean?
Well, you have a group of people living in a freezing, hostile environment. They are desperate for warmth. They find a yellow rock, and because they so badly want to feel protected, they just invent a grandiose story to make it magical.
That is a very common modern assumption for sure. But it dismisses the psychological necessity of myth-making.
Okay, psychological necessity. Tell me more.
When you are surviving in a landscape that actively wants to kill you, discovering a flawless glowing stone inside cold granite creates severe cognitive dissonance.
Because it just shouldn't be there.
Exactly. You need a framework to process that anomaly. Attributing it to a wounded protector isn't just naive storytelling. It's a profound psychological defense mechanism.
Oh, I see.
It transforms a terrifying, random wilderness into an environment that holds meaning and protection.
So it's less about explaining the rock and more about using the rock to explain their own survival.
Precise.
Rather than that cliché superhero origin story I mentioned, it operates much more like a family heirloom.
That's a much better way to look at it.
Like if you have a physical token, say a grandfather's watch or a wedding ring, it manifests a feeling of presence and protection even when the person isn't physically in the room with you.
The stone becomes an anchor.
Right.
Because these crystals were viewed as literal fragments of a protective, wounded sun, they naturally took on deep personal and energetic significance.
They transition from a communal survival myth into tools for intimate psychological restoration.
Which brings us to how this stone is used today.
Yes, the energetic properties. Because people listening might be wondering, what does this actually do for me?
Well, metaphysical practitioners use Clinohumite to target the emotional body. It is specifically utilized when someone feels incredibly low or burdened by emotional heaviness.
Or just completely drained.
Right. The goal is to gently lift that spirit and reignite the inner spark.
And the terminology used in the source to describe this effect is so interesting. It's said to help you get your mojo back.
Mojo is such a brilliant, relatable term to use here.
It really is.
Because it grounds this lofty ancient myth in a very modern psychological state.
Yeah, when we talk about losing our mojo, we are talking about a loss of agency, really.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
that heavy, dragging sensation where your enthusiasm just
Your
vanishes.
confidence tanks.
And even basic tasks feel insurmountable. You feel disconnected from your own capability.
And connecting with this crystal is supposed to create a sense of warmth that dissolves that heavy paralysis.
But it doesn't give you a frantic, caffeinated burst of energy.
No, it's more like it replaces the heaviness with a quiet, steady happiness.
It triggers a natural, effortless joy that encourages you to move forward.
Energetically, the source notes it resonates with the solar plexus and sacral chakras, which govern personal power, creativity, and emotional equilibrium.
And the alignment there is absolutely fascinating.
Rico?
Well, those specific energy centers are naturally stimulated by yellow and golden wavelengths of light. Color psychology tells us that yellow triggers associations with warmth, action, and optimism.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
For the physical property of the stone, that perfectly organized magnesium silicate lattice we talked about refracting yellow light is actively participating in the psychological shift.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If you, the listener, are walking around feeling completely emotionally drained, what is actually pulling you out of it?
That's the big question.
Is it the optical physics of the yellow light triggering an optimistic response in your brain? Or is it the psychological weight of holding a stone tethered to an ancient guardian legend?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you really cannot separate the two.
They're a package deal.
Completely. The color invites the initial neurological warmth, but the legend provides the psychological anchor.
That makes sense.
Think about the cultural milestones associated with this stone. For generations, they haven't just been pretty rocks sitting on a shelf.
Right, they are powerful talismans.
They are given as gifts at births and weddings. They were literally placed into the cradles of newborns to project safety.
Wow.
And most poignantly, they are laid with loved ones when they pass away as a symbol of eternal light. They function as keepers of enduring connection.
So they are marking the absolute most vulnerable transitions of the human experience, coming into the world, binding your life to someone else's, and leaving the world entirely.
Exactly. When you feel emotionally heavy or completely devoid of your mojo, holding an object that represents that level of enduring connection is a profound psychological tool.
It reminds you that light can survive the most crushing tectonic pressures of the earth.
And the darkest nights of the legend. It physically grounds your personal power.
It is a literal, tangible reminder of resilience. Now, hearing about the subterranean collisions, the tectonic pressure, the ancient myths, and this deep cultural reverence, it's easy to assume these crystals are completely inaccessible.
You'd think they're entirely locked away in museum archives somewhere.
Behind bulletproof glass, yeah. But there is a modern bridge to this ancient history.
Finding gem-quality clinohumite is still a statistical anomaly, as we said, but there are pathways for individuals to engage with them.
For instance, the source explicitly mentions that Keith at KSC Crystals currently curates and makes some of these beautiful, incredibly rare crystals available on his website.
For those who want to work with one.
Yeah. And looking at a modern availability through the lens of everything we've just discussed completely changes the gravity of acquiring one, doesn't it?
It does. It is not just adding an item to an online cart.
No, based on the lore, it's akin to adopting a tiny, preserved piece of ancient sunlight.
And in a modern era characterized by endless digital information overload, fast fashion, and mass production, engaging with a physical object like this is incredibly grounding.
Because most of what we interact with daily was manufactured in seconds.
Exactly. Clinohumite requires an unimaginably rare combination of time, cataclysmic pressure, and volatile chemistry just to exist.
You can't fake that history.
When you hold a piece of it, you are demanding a kind of presence and respect that mass-produced objects simply cannot command. It forces you to slow down.
It forces you to marvel at the sheer scale of the Earth's mechanics and the beautiful, desperate imagination of the humans who tried to understand it.
Truly.
We've covered a massive span of history today. We started miles underground, unpacking the violent geological pressures of the Pamir Mountains.
The tectonic friction.
Right. Then we climbed up to the freezing peaks to witness the breathtaking myth of a wounded sun fighting the mountains to protect its people.
Lead against stone.
And we brought it all the way down to the deeply intimate space of human emotion, looking at how this yellow stone can anchor our psychology and dissolve our emotional heaviness, helping us get our mojo back.
It shows how seamlessly a single object can bridge the monumental, violent forces of nature and the quiet, vulnerable internal landscape of human emotion.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the final thought we should leave the listener with today?
Well, the source describes Clinohumite being laid with loved ones as a symbol of eternal light and a keeper of enduring connection.
Right.
So if these stones are viewed as literal fragments of a guardian's past sacrifice, how does holding an object born from struggle change the way we view our own emotional heaviness?
Oh, I love that question.
If the sun can be fractured and still provide light for generations, perhaps our own fractured moments are just a creation of our own inner fire mountain.
What an incredible thought to walk away with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. To you listening, keep digging, keep questioning the things you've always taken for granted, and keep seeking out the fascinating, radiant stories hidden beneath the surface of the world around you.